Hi, everyone. Once again, I'm Melinda, and it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our final keynote of this year's Fall Discovery Lab. Not just because I'm excited that Jenny Lawson has a new book. I think we all are. Her new book is called Broken in the Best Possible Way, and it's coming from Henry Holt in April of next year. But also because she is now one of us. She is an indie bookseller, having just opened her bookstore in San Antonio, Texas, Nowhere Bookshop. So welcome to the fold. We're so excited to have you. I already asked her if she would just, jump regions and be a honorary CALIBA member as well.
I'm in.
Yes. Anyway, in conversation with her today is Amy Einhorn, her editor and the president and publisher at Henry Holt. They are going to be in conversation, and then we'll have room for questions at the end or throughout, however the session fits. So please just go ahead and drop any questions you have in the chat and we will pick them up. Thanks so much, Jenny and Amy, for being with us, and take it away.
Okay. Yay. Hi, everybody. So first of all, it's just so nice to see so many, well, I don't see your faces, I actually just see names, but to see so many friends out there in the audience. So A, hello. B, I just want to say thank you to everyone for all of what you do. If you guys didn't do your job so well, I wouldn't have a job, and none of my colleagues would, so thank you. And lastly, I would just say, knowing that you are all in California, that we have all been thinking of you and watching everything happening with the fires and just everything. So, this has been extenuating circumstances this year, I would say, and probably you have had it more than most. So, we hope that you're all okay. So with that, though, I think we could all use some levity. I know I can. So it's so nice to be in conversation with Jenny. Jenny and I have not seen each other in person, oh my gosh, but I mean, even this in so long. So Jenny, I will start off and just ask, where are we talking to you from?
I am in San Antonio, and I have been under just pretty much full house arrest. Because I have a lot of autoimmune issues, I can't leave the house even for anything. So at this point, we actually just figured out that, so my husband, Victor, and my daughter, Haley, it's the three of us here, and we work from home, and she does her Zoom high school. And it has been literally a half a year since we've seen anyone in real life that we know, like literally a half a year, no friends, no, just except for Zoom. Thank God Zoom exists. So it's weird. It's a weird time.
But yet the perfect time to open an independent bookstore.
I was like, how could I possibly make a lot of money? Independent bookstore in the middle of a pandemic. I actually, so Nowhere is, I want to say, the longest running independent bookstore that has literally never opened the doors even once for customers, because we have been open for a half a year, and we have never had any customers come inside, which is so sad because it's such a beautiful shop. But it's really nice though, because we have a great community that supports us and goes by and looks in the window and goes like, hey, can I pay over the phone? Can you put it outside the book? And then we do. So thank God for curbside and shipments.
So tell us though, like, what led you to, I mean, there's obviously authors are always like, I love bookstores and what led you, because it's a huge undertaking, obviously, going from that to I am going to open an independent bookstore. Take us through that process for you.
So there are very few places where I feel really safe because of my anxiety disorder. And really the only places that I feel very safe are libraries and bookstores. And they've always been sort of a sanctuary to me. And so my husband, Victor, he's an entrepreneur. And so he's always like, let's do this. Let's start a restaurant. Let's start this. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. You can go do that. He does his own stuff. And then one day he was like, what about a bookstore? And I was like, damn it, why did you say that? Yes, I would like to have a bookstore. It's a terrible idea. I'm going to spend all my money there. I don't know what I'm doing. But then we got really lucky that Elizabeth Jordan joined us, and she's amazing. And so we had this great community, and it was so unexpected to me. When we started the bookstore, there were all of these other independent bookstores that were like, hey, how can we help you? Hey, let's be friends. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited you're here. And I was like, this is not what I expected. I expected people to be like, oh, fuck you, like this is my spot. This is, I think, the only business that exists that is where people are just so happy that you're like, well, you're part of the community. And I don't know, it's lovely.
So I was going to ask you, like, what's been your biggest surprise, aside from the fact that you haven't been able to open your doors, right? Like, so what has been your biggest surprise that you hadn't thought about, like, in terms of becoming a bookseller?
There are 800, like every single day there's something that I'm like, that a regular bookseller would just know that Elizabeth has to be like, no, that's not how that works. Okay. Like, I mean, just some basic stuff. Like I created a window display, and it's all like Halloweeny, and there's these, white owls that are holding this, like, read for a spell banner, and it's like all fortune telling. And I was so excited about it. I took a picture and I sent it to Elizabeth, and I was like, look what I did at the store today. And she was like, it's facing the wrong way. It has to face out. That's how I just make a lot of mistakes. But I think actually the thing that was the biggest surprise is that I started this book club that was just called the Fantastic Strangelings Book Club. And I was like, if we just have like 100 people that join, and we'll all just like once a month, we'll pick a book that maybe wouldn't have gotten a whole lot of press otherwise. And we'll all read it together, and we'll maybe, Zoom with the author. And I think we have like 2,700 members now. And so I think that was the biggest surprise, is how many people were just so excited to say, I want to be part of this. I want to be, part of the community. And it's so lovely. And so many of the people who joined are fellow authors, or they, also work at bookstores, or they, and it's so, I don't know, it was a lovely surprise.
So without offending anyone's political sensibilities, I am going to ask, so you're in Texas, which is not, I think is fairly conservative overall.
Yeah.
So, and I'm curious in terms of what it's like right now being in the pandemic there, and also what is it like opening a bookstore, which I think I don't think I'm going out on a limb, but traditionally sort of seen as sort of more progressive and liberal places, and doing that in Texas. And I don't mean to say to make a huge generalization about Texas, but I'm just curious how it's been.
It's hard. Texas is generally red, but most of the big cities are pretty blue. So I don't feel, our bookstore is very, I would say, left leaning. If you looked through the windows, you would look through and be like, oh, okay, we know what she believes in. Even though, there's room for all voices, but it's hard. It's hard because not only are there, even just on my own block where people can believe whatever they want to believe. I'm in a mixed political marriage myself, but it's a little frustrating when my Biden signs continue to get stolen over and over again. The hardest thing I think that we have had, because I think overall people tend to be fairly either open-minded or just don't really care. But the hardest thing that we've had a problem with is people wanting to come inside and being very angry that we are not open to the public, because they're just like, but you're allowed to have people in. And I'm like, yeah, we're allowed to, but I don't think it's safe yet in San Antonio, and I'm not going to make it unsafe for my people. And actually yesterday we had our mail service guy refused to put a mask on, and we're like, you can have a mask here, but here's a mask, put it on. And he absolutely refused. and wouldn't pick up any of our packages. And we're like, when did science become political? Just wear it in the store. We're not even saying you have to wear it in the street, which technically you need to wear it in the street because that's a mandate, but whatever. Oh, I'm gonna take a deep breath there. Sorry.
Okay, it's kind of fascinating. I want to get to your book because I feel like we can spend the whole time just sort of chatting and catching up, and the world is there's so much to talk about, right? But tell us a little bit about, so it's been 6 years, if I'm not mistaken, and I should know because I'm your editor, but since Furiously Happy, and can you tell us a little bit about Broken in the best possible way?
Yes. So yeah, I think it has been about 6 years, which I should probably just put like a little apology out there because, there's so many people who are really good at writing quickly, and I am not one of them. I had, when I started writing this book, in fact, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to write. Like, I don't know that I have anything. And I was like, maybe I should do things. And then maybe that would give me some material because I just sit home and I don't really leave my house and I'm kind of reclusive. And I had all these ideas of like things I was going to do. And then I didn't do any of them. And instead I wrote these chapters about, basically about what life is like for me. And, some of it's funny and some of it's sad. A lot of it has to do with battling mental illness or autoimmune disorders and diseases and things like that. But there's also an awful lot of just utter ridiculousness. One of the things that I think is sort of the theme of this book for me, and I would say typically when people read my books, everybody gets a little different something, but when I go through it, the thing that comes up for me is the theme is sort of mortification, that I'm writing about all of these things that are absolutely just mortifying, that happened to me, that I did because I just make missteps all the time. And what I realized is all of those stories, those are the stories everybody wants to hear. Nobody's like, tell me about your new sports car. Oh, I can't wait to see what food you ate. But people always want to hear like, tell me the most embarrassing thing that happened to you, because it opens up this door and suddenly they're like, okay, first of all, you're a real person. Number two, I can top that. Number three, oh my God. And then suddenly you're like, you're human again. And so, so to me, that is what this book is about. It's about humanity and embracing your awkwardness and your mortification and all the things that make you broken.
And I will say, Jenny, I'm always, I've had the honor of being on tour with you a couple of times now and like seeing firsthand. And it's interesting because I know how popular you are because I actually see your sales figures, right? So I know that. But I remember being online, and first of all, you have these crowds of like, 300-500 people, but there was, and I always sort of cry telling a story, but I don't even remember, there was this, I think we were in Tattered Cover, and there was a young woman who waited online this whole time, and she's with her mother, it turns out, and then she gets to you and she says, I can't even say it, but she says like, I'm only here because of you, and then like gives you this hug. And it was sort of, but it was like constant, like that we would have that whenever you would go on tour. And also I remember you saying to me once after one of the really long tours, the signings, you said to me, I don't know if it was 3 or 5 people that night who like leaned into you and whispered that they have, I forget what it is, where you pull your hair out.
Should we tell them? Yeah.
And that they thought they were the only ones, and you were like, every time. And were you surprised by, you talk about in your first book about sort of finding your tribe on the internet. Were you surprised about, or are you surprised by how much your stories, which frankly, I would think are kind of very specific to you. I don't think there's a ton of people who had the experience growing up with your dad and taxidermy and just all of that stuff. Were you surprised at how universal some of the things that you're talking about are?
I was, and I continue to be, which I don't know if that is a product of my anxiety, which constantly tells me that I'm the only one and that nobody else feels like a failure or an imposter, or if it's just, if we all sort of feel that way and we're just afraid to say it out loud. I have a ton of people who show up at book signings, and they are like, this is the first time I've left my house in 3 months. And every single time I look at them and I see my eyes, because I'm exactly that. Like, I just want to run away. Like, I'm like, I so get it. And I get how hard it was. And, you know, so Victor travels with me sometimes when I'm on tour, and he does this thing, which is very sweet. And he doesn't do it out loud. He does it very quietly, but he will watch people in line, and sometimes he will see somebody and he recognizes anxiety because he sees it in me, and he will sometimes like go talk to that person and be like, hey, do you want me to pull it? Do you need to go? Do you want me to pull you up? And he'll just be like, hey, Jenny, come get a drink. And I'll just sneak over, and so that I can, really quickly, give them a hug and everything, because it can be utterly exhausting to just be seen for more than 15 minutes when you have real anxiety. So I not only do I appreciate it, but I feel like I get back so much more in knowing that I'm not alone. Yesterday I had a really bad mental health day. Like, I mean, just I have a panic anxiety attacks a lot, and they are just like the heart pounding, and I feel like I might be like physically sick, and I'm like, it's the dread, and it's really bad, but I can take a Xanax and I'll be exhausted for a little bit, but I can recover from it. But yesterday I had a panic attack, which feels very much like a heart attack. And after I have those, I feel really sort of fragile and ragged, and like at any moment I could go back into that. And yesterday I just struggled so much with it. And then this morning I was like, the only way that I can get this out of my head, this dread that I'm about to have another one of these, is if I just write it down. Because if I write it down, I can shut the page on it. And so I did. And I had all these people who were like, me too, oh my God. I thought I was the only one who felt like I'm like treading water and not getting anything done, and then I'm a failure. And then, not only do I realize that I'm not alone, but then I can look at all of them and be like, they're doing fine. Like, I get how they feel, but I look at them and I'm like, oh, you're great. You're wonderful. How could you doubt how important you are and how special you are? And then if I'm saying that, then maybe I can give myself that same doubt and say, maybe I'm also doing better than the voices inside my head are saying.
And do you think, I'm just curious, because in a way I feel like we've been reading all these articles about mental health and the pandemic. It seems to me we're seeing more articles about that and people talking about mental health, but yet one of my favorite pieces in the book is your letter to the insurance company. So I feel like we sort of talk this talk, but don't walk. Is it right? We're not. So can you, first of all, tell people what I'm referring to and why you wrote it?
Yes. So it's called An Open Letter to my insurance company, which I actually did send to them. And it is just an angry missive that I wrote in the middle of dealing with trying to get basic health care for mental health. They wouldn't cover my antidepressants because they said they weren't medically necessary, which they absolutely are. And then after that, they tried to charge me these like $300 a month penalties for taking them. And then after that, I did this TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, but it's basically a treatment for non-treatable depression. And the doctor that I was working with, it just basically said, I've never in the 25 years of being a doctor, I have never seen an insurance company this awful. I mean, just absolutely refuse over and over and not listen. And it got to the point where I had so many appeals that my psychiatrist was like, I can't afford to continue to send these appeals out and it's just for my basic Cymbalta. Like it's just not for anything that's like, I need like 8 pounds of lithium. I just want basic, it's not even a high dose. And so I wrote this long letter about the fact that, you know, you talk so much about wanting to keep me safe, but when it comes to mental health, people tend to eschew it. And when you're dealing with depression, the very last thing that you want to do is fight it. You know, you already are telling yourself, I'm not worth it. I'm taking money away from my family. I should just, you know, stop asking. And so to continue to fight a million times a year, literally year after year, it can be exhausting. And I just wonder how many people didn't recover because they gave up, because they thought that the insurance company saying you don't need it meant you're not needed. So yeah, that was a hard time.
What is your favorite piece in the book? Or is that like asking you to pick, well, I was gonna say, is it like asking you to pick your favorite child, but you only have one child, so it's an easy thing for you? You're like, Haley, she's my favorite.
Right? Oh gosh, that is a good question. I think, you know, it sounds ridiculous for me to say it because it's sort of a chapter that I wrote with a bunch of people. So it's a chapter all about awkwarding. And I was on Twitter and I wrote something about how I was at the airport and I bought like a candy bar, and the lady handed me back the change and she was like, enjoy your flight. And I was like, thanks, you too. And then I was like, I can never go back to this airport. And so then people started saying, oh, you think that's bad? And so they started sharing theirs, and it ended up being, I mean, thousands and thousands of people sharing their most embarrassing moment. And it was so fantastic that I ended up reaching out to several hundred of those people. And I just said, like, can I share this in my book? Because these stories are absolutely fantastic. And it goes back to this chapter that I wrote all about like embracing these human moments. And what's really funny is so many of those people who I really expected them to go like, oh my God, no, I don't want that to be in a book. And instead they were like, you know what, that used to be, I would cringe when I would think of it. And now that's not only my #1 most retweeted tweet ever, but I love the story now because now I can tell the story and be like, you know what? And then I shared it with the bloggers on Twitter, and then it went all crazy. And then all these other people were like, that happened to me too. And so I kind of love that chapter because I sort of co-wrote it with Twitter, if that makes any sense.
So I will say, so my two favorites, so that, first of all, I should point out, my husband hates when you send in a manuscript and I edit you, because he'll just like, he's like, it's so annoying. You're just cracking up all the time. And then you're stopping whatever I'm doing. And I'm like, let me read you this. But my two was, and I'm going to not do it justice, but there's a one where you say, well, you can't go back to the post office because you had the penises that were falling out. And I'm just going to whet everyone's appetite. Like, you have to read the book to understand what I'm talking about. And then there's a really beautiful one. And this is why I love reading you, and I'm so honored to be your publisher, is that, you know, you go from funny to really poignant and just very so honest. And you write that piece about breaking that statue in your house, which, you know, just made me cry. So I know we're about to run out of time, but I will ask you, Jenny, if you were you, like if you were asking yourself, like, what would you ask? Like, what have I not asked that you think, like, I wish someone would ask me this question? No one ever does.
You know, I am such an open book that I don't think that there is a question that I haven't been asked. I mean, my favorite thing to talk about is when people are like, what are you reading now? And what did you just read? And I mean, for me, that is I'm always so afraid of like small talk and conversation is just my kryptonite. But as soon as it turns to like, read any good books lately, then I'm immediately like, yes, let's talk about, did you read this one? And did you read this one? And that's, yeah, it's really nice.
Melinda, do you have questions that you want, that there are questions from the audience? I feel like I'm a game show host.
I don't see some, but I had one like a little comment, but you should have seen my face. My face was hidden when you were talking about insurance, what they said about you not needing it. My mouth went like, because I get so angry with that. I'm very lucky with my dad works for Facebook. Their insurance is incredible with mental health, but I have a friend who had absolutely nothing. So when I think about that, it's just so incredibly infuriating and frustrating. She couldn't go to therapists at all, couldn't get any medication. And it's like, he's frustrated, just like, okay, I want to help you so bad, but it's like, it's a full stop there where you like can't afford past that. I guess it's not exactly a question, it's just I'm frustrated with you. I had to add that.
Well,
Yeah.
What's interesting is that, so at that time, now I'm on my husband's insurance, which is the same insurance company. But before that, I was like on Marketplace. And so I bought my own insurance, I pay my own premiums, and I was on the highest priced, I mean, like just an insane amount of money in premiums. And so every time I would call, they would be like, maybe you should just be in a different, plan. And I would be like, really? Tell me what plan I should be on. And they would look at it and they'd be like, oh, you're on the platinum plan. I'm like, yeah, I'm paying so much money and you're not helping me with like the basics. And, I got to the point because I was like, I have like 500,000 followers on Twitter. So I was like, I could just get on Twitter and be like, hey, guess what, insurance company, I'm going to put you on blast. And I didn't for years. And then finally I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna put it all out there and be like, dear insurance company, this is what's going on. Is it supposed to be like this? And first of all, they immediately sent me a thing and they were like, can we take this private? Can we go to DM? I was like, no, because you can't just fix it for me because I'm like important on Twitter and then not fix it for everyone else. Like I want everyone else to see that this is going to continue to be, and it did continue to be a problem, but there were so many people who responded to that with their own horror stories that made mine look like nothing. And that was the point when I wrote the open letter, when I saw like thousands of people with the most just shockingly horrific situations of basic stuff not being taken care of.
And that's a whole huge other conversation too, of expectations with that. We do have a few other questions that have popped in. Joanna's asking, of course I have to ask, Jenny, what books are you loving right now?
Ooh, that is a really good question. Let's see. I just finished, I shouldn't say it because it's going to be one of my optional book of the month picks, but I'm going to just say it anyway. I'm sure it'll be fine. We Keep the Dead Close, which was all about like it's sort of a true crime, but it's really more about power struggles at Harvard. And it's so good. Highly recommend it. I'm rereading our pick this month, which is A Deadly Education. It's so good. So good. And I'm in between that and I'm also rereading Wow, No Thank You, because this is my saving grace. Every time that I get really depressed, I go to Samantha Irby is like who saves me. So I always have her books like literally around me. It's a little embarrassing.
Wonderful. I'm excited for A Deadly Education myself. You know, we're always so nosy about wanting to see like what people have on their bookshelves behind them when we have authors pop in. Somebody else is asking, how much time will you be able to spend in your bookstore? I know right now, since you have autoimmune issues to deal with. I don't know how that question can be answered, but
So right now, Sunday, nobody works on this at the store on Sundays. So Sunday is my day that I get to go up to the store and like keep the door locked, and I just basically get to like haunt the bookstore and go through, and I just have these big piles of books, and my husband's like, what are you doing? We'll never have a profit. And I'm like, these are my babies. You don't understand. This is my library. Ideally, once COVID is over, I would really like to be able to go and actually work at the bookstore one day a week. I don't know if that's in my mind. I have this feeling that it'll be a safe place and that I won't have as much anxiety there, and that'll be one of the only places that I'll be able to go that are outside of my house. But because I've never been there when it's been open, I don't really know if it's going to work like that. But I do have a little office in the back. And I was like, if nothing else, I can always just come and just write in my office and just close the door and be like, I'm out of my house. I'm still in here and I'm just writing. And I'm like, tweeting from the back to other people who are in the front, but I'm out of my house.
I know it's so hard. And
It is.
with your book club, I wanted to ask the name of your book club again so that I can link it to anybody that's interested and wants to check it out. What was it called again?
It's called the Fantastic Strangelings Book Club.
Fantastic Strange.
And it's a lot of fun. We just do weird, as a matter of fact, I have like Samantha's book was one of them, and the one of them that we did like Catherine House and Mexican Gothic, and we did like some dark, I would say it probably, because I like dark, kind of leans a little dark. But one of my favorite ones, because there are so many authors and publishers who, they're like, we want to get this book out, but they can't tour, and we don't know, should we put the book out? Should we not put the book out? And so there have been a lot of authors where they were like, okay, maybe we won't put the book out. And then we'll go to them and be like, well, we'll buy 2,700 copies. And they'll be like, we'll put the book out. Oh, yes. Okay. Totally. So that's really lovely. We can help the author and we can help the publisher. And what's really nice is sometimes, because they're not expecting to have a big amount of, what are they called, of prints. And so they'll be like, okay, we have to do a special printing just for you. And so when we did, They Did Bad Things was one of the ones that I picked. And so they did like a special little imprint with our just for the Strangelings, which was, so every once in a while, I don't know, it's just nice. It's nice. And then we get to meet up with the people. We did last month's was the Bone Shard's daughter, and so good.
Oh no, we lost your audio, I think.
You just rest. You rest and do your.
Yes, I think we just had the author of the Bone Shard's daughter a couple weeks ago, Andrea Stewart. We have like a recording of that on our website as the author interview. But
I love her.
thank you so much. If nobody else has questions, let me double check really quick.
Jenny, I was wondering while Valentina is checking, like, what was the timeline of writing and completing the book in conjunction with like trying to open an independent bookstore, and then potentially if it was in the same time as the shutdown and everything? It just seems like I don't know how to juggle what I'm juggling, and that just seems like monumental to me. So
yeah, I have not been able to write at all during shutdown. But I was able to, like, I feel like I don't have the creativity, just because I think it's because I can't leave like even my front yard. I'm so here and everybody else is here. I'm used to, like, usually Victor travels and Haley goes to school and I have like quiet time, and that doesn't exist. But I was able to do editing. So, so it was pretty much done. It was really just the final edits that we were doing sort of at, you know, during the whole like beginning of COVID stuff, which is good because, and if anybody out there is also struggling with writing, I feel you, because I just keep saying like, one day this is all going to go back to normal and it's going to be okay. And we can write again, and it's going to happen.
And then we'll come visit your bookstore.
Yes, please do.
Well, thank you so much again. I've posted the Facebook group and also the Nowhere Bookshop little link with a fantastic Strangelings book club there if anyone here is wanting to check that out. And thanks so much again for coming today. I know times are weird, but next, that's all I can say anymore. Sorry, I've been up since 6 a.m. But next up, we have CALIBA author speed dating at 5:30. If anyone wants to hang out and talk with us during our little break time, you can in the chat, but I'll be sharing our whole schedule that we had the past couple days. But thank you again.
Awesome.
Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Be
Amy.
safe.